By the late 1800s, nearly all the Native Americans vanished from Long Island. And so did animal species they shared the land with. Fortunately, there is still much diversity on eastern Long Island. Join me on a journey to understand several animal species on eastern Long Island that have become endangered of vanishing. Let's start in the forest, where we can find one of the world's largest terrestrial salamanders.
Salamander is an endangered species because this is the farthest north that the eastern tiger salamander can be found on the East Coast.
They are rare to begin with, but then you add these stresses of development, breaking up their habitat. They have been dwindling in population size, and they are an important part of the food chain. They help keep the insect populations in control. The best ways to help the population is mainly just to preserve lands. They need a certain space for a certain number of breeding adults to live, so you have good genetic variation.
Let's begin our journey out to the beautiful and majestic Great Gull Island.
Roseate terns are seabirds. They're closely related to the common terns. Appearance is a little bit different, and they're probably more sensitive than common terns to human disturbance, which is why they're endangered, because they're less tolerant of nesting near people. So when a lot of their former nesting places were taken over by people using beaches and building homes on the beaches and so forth, that destroyed a lot of their habitat.
We're under attack! Hide in the bunker. Quick.
Right here in Great Gull Island, they like to nest the periphery of the island, down under the rocks and the boulders, to some extent up on the edges, and sometimes in areas where we've created sites for them. It's really the biggest breeding colony in North America. This one was banded 3 days ago. And he's got his two bands. And roseate chicks have kind of pointy down, more pointy than the chicks of common terns. And their legs are dark. And he's got his Fish and Wildlife Service band and his field readable band. And cute little wings starting to grow. You can even see the feathers almost beginning to come out there. They need, in order to expand their population, more nesting sites, so it would be ideal if there were more islands where roseates could be attracted back to nest. Perhaps Plum Island, perhaps Little Gull, maybe some areas on the eastern end of Long Island that in the past have had roseates nesting, if they're protected, could have them again.
Let's head back to the forest, where we can find a tree-climbing fox.
All right, this is the gray fox. This is a roadkill that was found out in Montauk. It's the only member of the dog family that actually can climb trees. And it has very short but powerful, strong legs with very long claws. So it's actually very agile, can shimmy up to trunks of trees or reach lower limbs and make its way up. And it can actually make its way from tree to tree in a forest, just like a squirrel, getting from one limb to the next. Characteristics of the gray fox that separate from the red fox: it has a shorter muzzle. So the red fox is more of an open habitat, meadow, field species, and this is more of a woodland species. We thought this was extirpated from Long Island, and in 2002 we found roadkill on County Road 51. Right now it seems to be centered in the Manorville Hills area and out in the Montauk area. The New York State DEC hunting and trapping regulations actually allow you to trap gray foxes on Long Island. And we're trying to get those regulations changed now to better reflect the resource found here on Long Island. The other thing that's going to help the gray fox is protecting open space.
Over 2 hours of searching. We did almost 4 hours of searching with Jeremy the other day. No luck. Hopefully we'll find one eventually.
Hognose snakes were actually considered by a lot of local biologists when I started first working on them to be extirpated or locally extinct throughout the entirety of Long Island. We were pleasantly surprised to find that that wasn't the case. Hognose snakes aren't venomous at all. They're completely benign. They don't even bite, although they will pretend to. These snakes use an entire routine of bluff techniques to scare predators and people, but they're harmless. I've never seen a hognose population that occurred where toads didn't occur. For instance, if you were to fill that wetland or take out that vegetation and turn it into a house, then the middle step, the toads are lost, and the whole consequence is that the snakes eventually dissipated. Where you see them on Long Island now are the few wild places that are really truly protected. And if you lose those critical open spaces, whether it's grassland, scrubland, or sandy dunes or sand complexes, you will lose the hognose.
Now let's enter the water, where we can find the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle.
So the Kemp's Ridley is one of 4 different types of turtles that we have here in New York. And the Kemp's Ridley, we typically see juveniles here. They get as large as about 70 pounds, so usually about maybe 3 feet in length. And they're listed as endangered, so they're endangered species. You know, you don't know if this contamination down the line will lead to cancers, so that you could have chronically ill population that right now is fine, but 10, 15 years down the road, when we're relying on those same turtles to reproduce and to nest, they're not going to be able to. They're going to be sterile, or, you know, and I think that's what we're most concerned about, because we don't have the answers. We all know that this was a catastrophic event. We know that the Gulf is extremely important for various different life
stages of the Kemp's Ridley. They nest in Mexico. So all those hatchlings enter the Gulf. What the Riverhead Foundation currently is doing is we're down in the Gulf. We have teams that go out every day. We work with NOAA Fisheries and the Wildlife Command Center, Unified Command. And we're going out there on a daily basis and searching for the oiled turtles. So these animals have oil on them. We're taking them up out of the water. We're bringing them to an aquarium where they can get medical treatment for that, and then they're being returned.
The Kemp's Ridley is a more global example of a vanishing species. One thing I learned at my summer internship is to think globally but act locally. I'd like to take a moment to tell you about my internship.
We're a non-profit. We're based in Bridgehampton and Southport.
We work very heavily in education, so we have a number of education programs that get people outside, that get people to appreciate the environment, and to get them to understand the relationship to the environment around them. The other thing that we do is we have direct action projects or community action projects where people get out and we restore degraded habitats, we take out invasive species, we replant areas that have been degraded from human foot traffic over dunes or that kind of thing, so people can actually see the results of their work. And then the third part of what we do is the typical advocacy work that you might think of with an environmental organization, where we try to come up with new ways for government and communities to solve environmental problems. We respond to problems that are created, whether those problems might be some development proposal that's not going to be good for the region, or whether it's a proposed policy or funding cut that might affect environmental protection. Every time you do a development project, you are eliminating some kind of habitat. It might be a grassland habitat that's supporting a small population of grasshopper sparrows. Okay, they're going to be gone. It might be a larger habitat that could have breeding for scarlet tanagers, which is now cut in 4 different pieces, and then it's not appropriate for them to breed there. And so these things happen slowly over time, and then the collective impact, of course, is that you can start to peel off a number of species that are no longer able to survive here, that used to be able to survive here.
We are changing the environment. We do have population pressure. There is so much harm that we've done to the wildlife on Long Island and in other places, but we can do something about it. We can stop a nuclear power plant. We can stop a highway from coming all the way to Amagansett. We can set aside open space so that wildlife will have a place to go.
How do we want to manage the future of any community? It doesn't have to be particularly high tech, but it's being aware of the resource on a regular basis, and it's appreciating its diversity and its value enough to stand up to do something for it.
So a basic biology of the osprey is it's a very large predatory bird, and it's a piscivore, which means it mainly eats fish. 98% of the osprey's diet is composed of fish, and the other 2% could be, amphibians, frogs, turtles, and sometimes small rodents. So just seeing that massive bird just slam into the water with its, oily feathers, you see the water just slick right off its feathers, grab it in its talons with ease, and just fly away. And it's just, to me, that's really sweet. And I hear the osprey come in, making his call. So the most major improvement in osprey numbers is probably a direct result of the federal banning of DDT in 1972. The osprey has been a great success story for conservation. It's just a great example of people coming together from different organizations and just starting this initiative to get numbers back on the charts for the ospreys. So it's important that we have, we have organizations like the Group for the East End, the Peconic Land Trust, the Nature Conservancy, and local governments that are acquiring these and purchasing these properties for preservation value.
There is a sustainable way to coexist with these animals. As a community, we must define the boundaries of our development so the amazing diversity of the East End remains. Hi, I'm Paul Stoughton. Let me do a workout. I think I gotta come in hot. I'm Paul Stoughton. Join me on a journey to Eastern Long Island.